Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
It's election day, but what are the odds that we'll actually know who the next president is going to be by the end of the night?
So it's fasten the seatbelts time. That's all we can do because we're in for a rough couple of days, and we're going to try here to do the very best we can to stay connected with each other and with as many people as possible. Might be a period of time that we're coming into that will be surprisingly over quickly. Might be a period of time that goes on and on and on. We don't know. Will it be a 2000 election?
I hope not. Is it bad that I blame
537 votes in Minnesota?
I blame Pennsylvania for this. Is that bad?
Wisconsin? Oh, blame Pennsylvania. How can you not blame Pennsylvania? I think that they are definitely taking out all of their dysfunctionality and their frustration with each other, the Democrats and Republicans, on the nation.
Yes.
For some reason, they feel like we should have to pay for this.
And we're to this point, we've made it this far. And it's interesting. I get a lot of calls and texts on election day, and people are always like, man, you got to be slammed today, man. And I'm like, well, actually, no, everything's just, let's pray ivoters.com doesn't go down. Let's pray it makes it through the day. And no, it's done. I mean, I can take a walk in the park. Don't have to worry about panicking. All should be good on election day. Most years.
No, election day works, but if our work's not done by election day, we're in big trouble. Yeah. So what we're going to try to do is to see if we can keep, all of our pets' heads from falling off, and in the zaniness of what we're about to get into. And talking about Pennsylvania, I mean, the reason we're picking on Pennsylvania, we have a lot of great friends there. We love Pennsylvania, but they've got some serious dysfunctionality regarding their election laws and the way that they count things there. And they didn't fix them over the last 4 years because they got into a you-know-what contest with each other between the Democrats and Republicans. And so now the whole nation's going to pay for it because right now, I mean, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, given a number of votes that have come in that are in sealed envelopes, whether they were in person or absentee by mail, because they count them all the same, when you get an early ballot in Pennsylvania, it's in an envelope, it's sealed, and it can't be opened until the morning of the election. In other words, tomorrow morning. How many millions of those are sitting right now waiting to be opened? Waiting to be opened right now. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know how many are going to come in the mail. And I believe it's 7:30 a.m. they can start that process across the state of opening envelopes. The Republicans and Democrats, let's get this straight. They couldn't agree on a law to allow people to not count votes early. No one's advocating for counting votes early. Just to prepare the votes so that it wouldn't take time to open envelopes on election day.
It makes no sense to me. It seems like it should have been the most bipartisan, nonpartisan thing possible. It's like it's Christmas morning or something. And the parents aren't letting the kids open the Christmas presents until they wake up and they read Luke 2 and then they have breakfast and they brush their teeth and you can't open your presents yet. Like, it's just absurd. It's like,
why did I feel like we just slipped into a Nate Bargatze moment right there?
Oh, he should do a bit on Pennsylvania.
Is there more you'd like to tell us about your childhood? Yeah. Is there something else you'd like to say?
Oh, wow. That's transparent, huh?
And they did do some calculations on one television program. I don't know if it was 60 Minutes or what, but some of the people, the officials in Pennsylvania, were helping us understand why it takes at least 3 minutes from the time that the envelope comes into the hands of the election worker to where it's opened and it's secured and it's unfolded and it's reshaped, that it then can be counted. So
even more reason to open it early.
You can do the math. If you have 1,000 people and it takes 3 minutes per envelope, how many envelopes can you open and prepare to feed into a machine in 1 hour? And then divide that number by the whole number of ballots, and you say, I'll see you next month. I mean, it's just, you got to be kidding me. Are they going to have 10,000, 100,000 people counting these things? So now, good luck, right?
Well, it's going to be a painful process, most likely. And the other part about that is when there's any type of delay in results, we're such an instant gratification society. We want everything yesterday. we really want it yesterday. So if there's any type of delay of results, which most likely from Pennsylvania there will be, no matter which side comes out on top, you're going to get accusations of shenanigans. Yeah, I was trying to think of the polite way to say it.
That's why I bet you.
Name that tune.
Yeah. My guess is both presidential campaigns just hope that Pennsylvania isn't even needed. You'd like PA to not even have to be factored in for it to be called. That would kind of be nice. And I'm sure both sides are rooting for that.
So what are some of the therapies that you can use? I mean, if you're sitting there watching it, first off, most people are going to be watching by television because that's what they do. We talked about coming up with all kinds of different ways of getting live online to try to be some other source, because we've got numbers too through iVoters and other networks that we work with. We've actually known the outcome of some of these elections before the networks knew, because we've got really good people on the ground. But we decided this year to not go live, not to try to do, in essence, a big 1850 session live during the election. So we'll be watching just like everybody else. Now, we might be doing some stuff, Rob, maybe iVoters or other places will do some stuff on social media. We'll stay tuned, pay attention. We'll do all that we can.
Well, and we'll be in studio bright and early the next morning.
We'll
ready to record.
We'll be ready to roll.
Yeah, it's not like we're taking the week off or something.
Just Tuesday off. We're just taking Tuesday off.
Well, and we'll be watching
up all night because there's a lot of media sources that will be talking to us in the evenings looking for our numbers. And so we'll be working the night, and probably if it's a 2 or 4 hour of sleep, that would be a luxury. But we'll be in Wednesday morning like we have in the past, first thing, to make darn sure that we can talk about what we've discovered to that point in time. Now, Alan, your point's well taken. One piece of therapy that I would encourage everybody to get is make sure you know how to get to 270 to win. It's really simple. It's 270 TO win. 270 to win. 270 win will give you a chance to play the electoral map with your own hands. And so you can see how these counts are coming out. Because watching the networks and these people hopping and bopping around their boards and punching this and punching that, make you plumb crazy. It's much simpler than that. Just get the 270 to win, and you can run your own electoral map. That will help. There's also some pretty fair sites that give reporting that the networks are all depending on. NBC News, not at all a favorite site, but in election times, NBC News tends to be out of New York, pretty good on numbers. Associated Press is good on numbers. The Washington Times sometimes is good on numbers. Rob, what other ones do you use?
The New York Times and others, a lot of them now will link directly to the Secretary of State website from each of the respective states. So that's where they're pulling their numbers and data from. So they're trying to get you as numbers as quick as possible, again, because we want them immediately, and people are trying to do the math as they come in. I know each of us will have, what do you think, 1,000, 1,100 tabs open on our computers trying to calculate numbers and say, well, this state voted this many times in 2020. What's it look like in 22?
The problem is I already have 100 tabs open on my computer sometimes, and my wife makes fun of me. So a night like this is just going to get worse. It's going to be bad.
So we will also tap into the Secretary of State's offices in their websites in the key states that we're watching, and that gives you a chance to follow key precincts and all that sort of stuff. Now, we're not expecting that most of the people that are watching this election have that data, and that's what kind of makes the network news special. You're presuming that in their war rooms they have these super nerds with massive a number of laptops open, unlimited tabs, and phones and text. And yeah, that's kind of sort of what it is. But it's not anything that they have that is special that you can't get either. So you can go as high-tech on this and as detailed and involved as you want. But these are some of the ways. 270 to win. If there's a state you're really concerned about, get to their Secretary of State's site, and then they usually refresh every 10 minutes. So you'll have, when the refresh button hits, you'll have the same data as the news services have, because they don't get anything better than that.
Right. And this year will be interesting to watch because there's always that initial data dump depending on when your state closes their polls. And many of the states count the absentee or the early voting ballots first. Now, usually that gave one party a big advantage and the other had to claw back. It's going to be interesting to see this year what that looks like in some of those key states, because I know it seemed to always be in the past, Democrats always encouraged early voting, especially through the COVID years and the changes in law that we saw. So this time it appears in a number of states, we don't know who they voted for. We're going straight by party registration. It appears Republicans have kept pace in some of the states with Democrats. So that first batch of numbers that come through, I'm interested in seeing that. What's that going to look like?
So those are some of the ways that you can keep up. I think it's important also that we keep an eye on the Senate races. That's where the networks will go to for fill-in while they're waiting for the next set of polls to close and waiting for the next set of data to be dumped. They'll be talking about Senate races. And we've been talking about this a lot. The current lingo that's out there says that the U.S. Senate is divided 51-49, with Democrats having 51 votes, Republicans having 49. And clearly, if the Republicans pick up 2 votes, there's only a fixed number of 100 senators. If the Republicans pick up 2, they have 51. And then the Democrats have 49. There are 2 seats of Democrats that are leaving, or Democrat or independent in Joe Manchin's case, in which will change the balance from the D to the R. Now, this is an art, not a science. All right, this conversation's not in the Constitution about how the Senate is to be controlled by political parties. If you study the founding, you'll find out that there were no political parties when the Senate was established, because people didn't believe in them back then, and they were probably smarter than we are by a long shot. In any case, the 51-49 will get all kinds of publicity if it happens, and people will be saying, oh my goodness, the Republicans have captured the House. Well, they've captured the right to change the meeting schedules, to move their offices to better space, and to buy new carpet and draperies. But they really haven't changed the actual debate process and the voting process, because there are 2 members that are incumbent senators on the Republican side that may as well be progressive Democrats. They may well change parties, because at least 75% of the time, they always vote with the radical progressives on the Democrat coalition in the Senate. Yes. And that's Lisa Murkowski in Alaska and Susan Collins in Maine. So these folks, they're not ours. They're D's masquerading as ours on the ballot. They have every right to do that. And the people in Alaska and Maine have every right to vote them. It's not illegal. I wouldn't even contend that it's necessarily unethical, but it is happening. So I think it's important to know that. So if you're going to get all exalted and excited about 51-49, don't get too pumped up on that, because when it comes to real voting, it's probably still going to be 51-49 Democrats.
And because of the filibuster, because of cloture, you're going to need 60 votes to advance a measure anyway. So anything that needs to get done, I know there's been threats about taking that off the table and getting rid of it, which we've kind of sat back and applauded. But we also know that we doubt that anyone would have the courage to do that, because they would have to run on and then defend it in the next election cycle.
iVoters.com changes everything about the way we process elections. Instead of negative TV and radio ads and biased opinions from editorial boards, now people in all 50 states can get the facts about candidates and ballot issues from a nonpartisan, independent source. iVoters is fast, free, secure, and powerful. With iVoters, you can vote with confidence and encourage others to do the same. Free minds, free speech, free agents. iVoters.com, a public service of the American Policy Roundtable.
So, and the reason this is important is to understand that while there's going to be an attempt by the media, whichever side wins, whatever the consequences are in the legislature, there's going to be an attempt to create the idea that this is a red wave or a blue wave or a big deal or massive change and so on and so forth. Maybe not so much. Let's say that Donald Trump wins and the Republicans get to 51-49 and they hold the House of Representatives by a narrow margin. Well, that's an opportunity for Fox News to get out there and just be saying this is the biggest change since Newt Gingrich won the House of Representatives and Oh, wait a second. A 3 or 4 vote margin in the House, if the Republicans hold it, is nothing at all. It doesn't guarantee a governing coalition in the House at all. That's going to be a slugfest start to finish. So if it's narrowly divided, as it's going to be, Everything will still be in contest. Everything will still be debated, just like everything in the country is debated. Everything in the House will be debated. And if it's 51-49 in the Senate, as you mentioned, Rob, until you have a 60-vote majority to control cloture, you got nothing in the Senate. So if the Republicans now have 51, they still need to have 9 members of the other party come over and join them to get a vote on anything of any substance that matters. Now, it does help that a party has a clear majority in regards to Supreme Court nominations because the filibuster has been dropped as a standing rule in the Senate for Supreme Court nominations. So 51 votes will get you there. So that is significant. That's substantive. But other than that, it's not very substantive. So anyone that's claiming the ultimate victory of all time, if their party sweeps the trifecta, so to speak, the House, the Senate, and the White House, probably not. Not so much.
Is there anything on election night, DZ, that you will be like looking for, or looking at, or will just be a bunch of Excel spreadsheets comparing numbers, or is there something you're waiting for to jump?
Let's see. How many times in 1 minute can I say the word Wisconsin? Because it's either Wisconsin or Michigan. It appears that the Republicans may have, according to polling, maybe the Republicans now are going to win Arizona. The Trump's going to win Arizona. So that means he's either got to win Wisconsin or Michigan to have the path that would be most anticipated. So, I mean, you can get on 270 to win and see how that works out. Now, again, the polls are too close. We're inside the margins of error. We've been hearing all that forever and ever. If, in fact, the Southern coalition of states that have supported Donald Trump or very closely supported Donald Trump deliver North Carolina and Georgia, if the people of North Carolina and Georgia vote for Trump, then everything comes up in the Eastern time zone to Michigan, and then one time zone over into Wisconsin. That's how to track the election. If Donald Trump wins North Carolina and Donald Trump wins Georgia, and then coming up to Michigan and wins Michigan, the networks are going to start losing their minds because this looks like it could be a Trump victory. Then we'll have to wait a couple of hours for Wisconsin because they're an hour behind.
Yeah, if he would win North Carolina, Georgia, and Michigan, then either if he won Wisconsin or Arizona, most likely he would be well over 270. He wouldn't even need Pennsylvania, to your point, Alan.
Exactly. Wouldn't need Pennsylvania. In fact, Rob, if he wins North Carolina, Georgia, and wins Wisconsin and Arizona, where he's up in Arizona, he doesn't need Michigan either.
Correct.
Or Pennsylvania.
Correct.
That's a clear path for him.
Yeah, he only needs one. If he's going to win Arizona, he only needs to win Michigan or Wisconsin. And
Michigan or Wisconsin,
and
right.
he would have victory.
Now, just as far as polling goes, and who knows if that's going to happen or not, the polls show exact opposites. Some show that he's going to win both. Some shows he's going to win neither. Some say she's going to win them both. Some say she's going to win either. I don't know. And I mean, and that's a fair question to say, look, given the mechanisms of polling in this day and age, who answers their phone? Who answers an unknown call to their phone? I mean, look, the cell phone blew up the polling industry years ago, and the polling industry has not found a way to recover. They just haven't. And online is not the same thing.
Well, and we talked earlier in staff meeting today, you brought up, Dave, just that any polling that if you try to compare to 2016, that's so long ago. I mean, you have people who were 10 years old that are now voting, in 16. And so the only thing I think you can learn from 16.
Slowly. That's a really smart point. Can you say that again?
I'm just saying, if you look at 2016, you have people who are 10 years old. Rob, check my math, who are now voting for the first time. And these folks live online. So you've got to look at, okay, who's controlling the meme game out here? Who's winning YouTube battles? Who's winning? You look at where some of these young folks are and who's kind of competing and winning at that level.
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of the young kids now that are 10 years old. They can't stand politics because the YouTube game has been dominated. Yeah. YouTube's being dominated by political ads, and every young person is like, I just wish they'd stop.
Whoever annoyed them less, maybe they'll vote for that person. But I think if you learned one thing in 2016 is that you couldn't trust the polls. I think that was the thing you learned in 16.
Yeah.
And I don't see it got better.
Everyone that's still here is 8 years older. And that's significant. And the other thing is that Donald Trump was an unknown entity by and large. He had name recognition, but no one knew what he would do as a politician because he had never been a full-time office holder ever in 2016. So it was a guess. Now people have basically, if there's the ability, I won't say it that way. Let's just say people know who Donald Trump is now. And they have a pretty good understanding of what to expect from him in governance. That alone changes the entire comparison with 2016. So, and then you have the other thing you have in this election. And look, we're not going to tell you who to vote for, and for that matter, you shouldn't care because our three opinions don't matter any more than yours. We each get one vote, and so do you. So, I mean, we don't take ourselves that seriously here. It's what we do for a living. It's what we're required to do by the mission that we've committed to, and we do it with joy. All right. I mean, but you still. Don't trust anybody, okay? Don't trust us.
Do your homework.
Don't trust anybody.
Do your homework.
Yeah, that's the point. Do your own homework. And you can borrow ours all you want, but don't try to pass it into the teacher with with your name on it, because we may be wrong. We may be wrong. So how do you keep your mind? Well, I think you have to keep your mind by understanding a couple of things. I mean, I could default quickly to a conversation that moves toward faith. But before I get to faith, even though faith was primary and faith would be first, before I go there, before I get to the foundation, let's talk about maybe the first floor. Look at our history. Look at the construction of our country. There was a hilarious skit on Saturday Night Live the other night. Yeah, what was it? Guess that name? Is that what it was?
Yeah, they show you a person, you have to guess who the name is. Yeah, John Mulaney.
John Mulaney was the lead on it. He was hilarious. And the idea was Mulaney is one of these social media people that is always lecturing people about names and say her name or do this name, and he's a political activist. He had all the right rhetoric, so they bring him out, and of course it's hilarious. He's quoting this meme and that, blah 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 blah. He's a living troll about all the things that are supposed to be said that are politically acceptable right now about this election.
He's virtue signaling like crazy. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so they ask him a couple questions, and he boom, hits his buzzer, gets him right off the easy ones. All right, bam, bam, bam on the pictures. They show him the picture. Who's this name? Then for I forget what he said, for more money than all the pharaohs ever had, here's your next question. And out comes a character who happens to be a member of the United States Senate.
Like an actual member of Senate. Yeah, not
actual member of Senate.
Real guy.
In the flesh.
Mm-hmm. Real human being comes out, and they say, okay, for like all the money in the world, name this person. He looks at him and he can't do it. He says, okay, we'll give you some help. His first name is Tim. Nowhere. We'll give you 3 last names and you can pick among them. Still boots it. And this guy says, 8 years ago, I was running for vice president of the United States. You said it was the most important election in the history of the world. And I was one heartbeat away from the presidency.
You said democracy was on the ballot.
Yes, and you can't remember my name. Well, it was actually Tim Kaine, who was Hillary Clinton's vice president and who's now a senator, former governor of Virginia, not a senator for the state of Virginia, one of them. And it was hilarious because it was true, right?
Very
How
true.
many people? So I thought that was a brilliant point of sort of poking all of us into the hyper level of our rhetoric. Let's look at history. History tells us we've got a system that's established with multiple layers of checks and balances. The presidency is not the be-all and end-all of our nation. The White House is not a temple that when the sun sets just the right way and the right bodies are inside, the gods are pleased with America and all shall be well. This isn't ancient Greek mythology. Presidency is a 48-month job, and it's hard work. And no president changes the world. It just doesn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen that way.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. And to get the facts on the candidates and issues that are going to be on your ballot this November, visit ivoters.com and enter your address and zip code. No name, no phone number, and no email address required. We don't want your personal information and we don't want your money. We want you to be well informed. So please share this podcast and iVoters.com with a friend today so they too can vote with confidence and encourage others to do the same. Thanks for stopping by today. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.